As the title indicates, this is a guide to making a waistcoat toile. I'll reiterate anything I said in any other toile videos to cover the basics here as well. A toile can be made from the pattern in a cheaper cloth in order to see that, first, the pattern works, and second, that the pattern fits the person it'll be made for. Toiling can be done with most any pattern and cloth, and the idea is that it's much faster than constructing a baste. Here I usually use silesia, the cotton cloth that I use for pocketing. It is also used when a baste is not an option, such as with shirts. The idea of the toile is to as quickly and cheaply test whether the pattern works, and to gain any idea of any immediate and major changes that couldn't be made if the finished cloth were cut. Toiling as a practice can also help to vaguely familiarize yourself with the basic order of construction, as well as indicating how I am going to use the pattern and how I will use the pattern when sewing the final waistcoat. The waistcoat may be the simplest pattern to toile, as it is made up of two pieces. Only the centre back seam needs any inlay. Every other seam should be cut as chalked. Place it onto the cloth in the most convenient, economical way. Typically, I place the centre back close to the edge of the cloth so that nothing has to be cut there and the chalk can just get sewn. Weighing down the pieces, chalking around like that. Copying the darts too. In some cases, when making the toile, the darts might not be sewn and the waist suppression can be pinned out in the fitting, which can potentially be more accurate than measuring and calculating when pattern cutting. Though it's also faster since it saves time both working out suppression and sewing darts into the toile. On the centre front, the mark at the bottom indicates where the trouser waistband seam should be, and the top one is basically the top button. Since the side seams and shoulders both have seam allowance, nothing needs to be added, and nothing needs to be removed either, as the hem and front edge are both the finished edges as chalked. No inlay should be added for this toile, except only the centre back needs any inlay because it is sewn on the chalk line. The armhole doesn't matter on the waistcoat because it doesn't need to be quite fitted. Cutting around every other line barring the centre back to get the pieces needed to begin sewing. Lastly, the darts would need to be copied onto the wrong side of all the pieces. It's potentially a waste of, everything to mark stitch, so I used a ruler to copy the dart line and the top and middle of the darts before drawing the widths of the darts. On the right hand forepart, on the right side, I also want to mark 2.5 centimeters, 1 inch from the edge on the button stand. This is where the other front edge should be, as waistcoats typically have a 1 inch overlap. Which is why the right hand forepart is often extended by 1 centimeter, 3/8 of an inch, along the button stand. This lets the buttons be set 2.2 centimeters, 7/8 from the edge instead of 1.2 centimeters, half an inch from the edge, so that the wearer's shirt isn't visible through the buttonhole. The buttonholes are 1.5 centimeters, usually 5/8 wide, and set half an inch, 1.2 centimeters from the front edge. If you see The Godfather, when they're wearing their waistcoats unbuttoned, there's a step where the button stand starts and sort of the break line ends. And that's what that is. Saving on mark stitching again, the balance points get snipped into so that they can be matched. The armhole should be level, but the hems on the front and back piece should be offset from each other, with the back being 2.5 centimeters, an inch, longer than the front at the side seams. At the machine, at this moment, every stitch can be sewn in one sitting. Typically, I'll start with the centre back seam so that it's least likely that the two pieces get offset, since I don't want to baste or pin at this moment. With the back seam fixed in place, the darts and the side seams can be sewn without consequence. Sewing the darts is very easy on cotton, and the cloth, it can just be folded over and the chalk marks be followed to sew the darts in. Darts or no, the side seam can be sewn, placing the fronts to the right sides of the back and matching the waistline notches. Since there's no inlay, the stitch can be started at the armhole both times, so it can be sewn with a 3/8 1 cm seam allowance and back tacked at the armhole. Finally, the shoulders can be sewn, starting at the neck both times, since the back shoulder is often wider than the front. The neck points should be sewn and back tacked together accurately, and the back doesn't need to be eased in along the seam at all. That's the 5 seams that need to be sewn. To get the most out of trying the toile and trying it on, seams and darts can be pressed over so that any puckering or, I guess, elastic potential energy of the seams without ironing, it doesn't interfere with how it looks and sits on the body. Could be worth mentioning that it's not reasonable, not wholly feasible to properly fit it onto yourself without someone else's help. If you're looking down at it, and when you're moving around to place pins or marks onto the toile, it won't be sitting how it will when it's actually being worn. It's better to find someone, potentially an alterations tailor, to help. Honestly, I don't know if cutters will typically fit you if you do the patterns and the bastes. Could be worth a try. Fitting, I think, is the lowest costed part of cutting, so who knows. I feel like I get more of a work benefit so that I can get what I make fitted to me, though I'm still the one doing all the work, so. Anyway, that is making a waistcoat toile. I suspect this is a much more helpful video than normal, and the next thing will be making a waistcoat baste from the final cloth.